So this is my Ducati XDiavel S, and to quote Pete Holmes, it doesn't make any fucking sense. This is actually my second time with this exact bike. I traded it in for an Indian a few years ago. That dealership unfortunately closed down, and since there was no service centers nearby, I decided to get out of that bike. The dealership that I traded this into reached out to me because they hadn't been able to sell it, and they offered it to me on consignment. They had to close down their shop. I kept it in my garage. I was a caretaker for it. They tried to sell it. Unfortunately, they were unable to. So we had a pre-negotiated buyback price to where if it didn't sell in a certain amount of time, I could buy it back at a discounted price, which worked out well for me because I ended up buying it back for quite a bit less than I traded it in for. And it really wasn't a surprise that it didn't sell. These things are incredibly expensive, especially when you consider the year of it. And for that same price, you could buy something that's brand new or easily, 3 to 5 years newer than this thing. So I was the original owner. I traded it in and it came back to me in a second life. I guess it didn't want to leave me. But again, it doesn't surprise me that it didn't sell. When people are looking for a muscle bike or a power cruiser, one, I don't think there's a lot of individuals who know that this bike even exists. And the ones that do probably haven't ridden Ducati or have a relationship with them and don't want to go from the Harleys, the Indians, the Hondas, the Suzukis, whatever it might be, into something like this. But I will say this thing is an absolute abomination. It has an identity crisis. It is a blast to ride. And out of every bike that I have ever owned, this gets the most attention and questions. And I think it's because it's just, you don't expect it, and people who don't know about it are just like, what in the hell is that? So today we're going to take it for a ride and we're going to talk about it a little bit. And I'm going to give you my opinion on why this thing is an absolute enigma. And like I said, it doesn't make any sense. So let's go for a ride. See you out there.
Today we're going to take a ride up north towards the Wisconsin border because it's some of the most beautiful countryside that I can get access to. But the best part is it concludes around the Great Lakes with a short little ride, maybe 20 feet from the lake, and it ends in this cool little town, which is always busy and a pretty good tourist spot. We're going to do that on the XDiavel. If you have ever wished a cruiser could corner like an Italian sport bike and keep that soundtrack and still give you that feet forward comfort, that's exactly what Ducati built, and it's this XDS. 1262cc Testastrada DVTL twin. Variable valve motor making around 156 horsepower at 9,500 RPM, 95 foot-pounds of torque or 130 newton meters at 5,000. That torque peak at an unusually low 5K is the whole point of this bike. Most of the Ducati bikes are obviously high revving, high output, and this was designed to go into that more cruiser-friendly, what I'd call muscle or power bike. It comes with a belt-driven final drive, which is the first time that Ducati has done anything like that. And the smoothness and maintenance that it gives as favorability compared to what they usually do with their chain and sprocket is actually really cool. It is a long bike. It's like 1600 millimeter wheelbase, 755 millimeter seat height, or 30 inches, and it comes in around 545 pounds. It does have all the other electronics that the Ducatis have, including the ABS, the traction control, cruise control, and it does come with their Ducati Power Launch for drag strip, which I've been too afraid to try, because even from a rolling start, this thing has got enough meat to scare you a little bit. And even with the forward controls and the cruiser style, this thing can still put over close to a 40-degree lean angle, which is crazy when you consider what this thing actually is. The reason I went for the S on this as opposed to the standards is it does have a little bit more of a premium trim. You get the gloss paint, you get machined wheels, the engine is machined, and it's got a little bit more of those kind of showpiece finishes, if you will. So the question is, why Ducati built it? They already had a Diavel, right? The power cruiser. You sat upright, mid-mounted controls. Riders loved the brute force, but many of the Western cruiser riders or buyers wanted that feet forward stance and a calmer belt drive with that really low RPM punch. But they also wanted to get more of that Italian attitude, if you will, because the standard Diavel just didn't have that. So the XDiavel was the answer. Low speed, high torque, relaxed power, and holding true to that brand's design, soundtrack, electronics, make that all baked in. Internally, Ducati often described the XDiavel with three numbers: 5,000, 60, 40. Torque peak, ergonomic configuration, and max lean angle. So that they could really get it across that it's a low torque street cruiser with comfortable ergonomics, but has an awesome lean angle. The original Diavel was around 2011, which I can't believe it's been that long, and it shocked people by how hard a cruiser could accelerate and corner. But it wasn't even a true feet forward machine, right? It still had that traditional naked style seating position, which is why people said it had an identity crisis. So then they launched the XDiavel and the XDiavel S. Longer, lower, forward controls, belt driven, that new 1300 DVT engine squarely landing in the middle of the American cruiser conversation. And it didn't want to just sell on numbers. Its design was well celebrated as one of the best to beat in the industry. When they put it out though, the market was confused. Reactions were fascinatingly split, probably in the best way. Cruiser purists looked at it, the trellis frame, the Desmo L-twin, the lean angle claim, and a lot of them thought it wasn't a cruiser. Sport riders saw the forward pegs and the stretched wheelbase and said it's not a sport bike. You know, what's Ducati doing? And in the end, it's both and it's neither. They praised the engine's shove, the finish, the quality, the power. It's obviously beautiful. Ducati, I think, doesn't make anything that's unattractive. But what's undeniable is that this bike expanded Ducati's audience. It's doing it slowly. I still think it has ways to go. But it brought riders into a world who would never have considered a Panigale or a Monster or a Street Fighter, and gave existing Ducati enthusiasts a second bike for slower days without giving up on the brand soul. As far as how it feels, fire this thing up and it sounds familiar. That syncopated Desmo thrum, little mechanical edge at idle, smooth, it smooths out as the revs rise. The first thing that you feel rolling away is that silky belt take up the slack, right? It is so smooth and so soft, and it's unusual for Ducatis who usually struggle in those lower city, lower RPM bands. But between that 3,000 to 7,000 RPM sweet spot, it's sensational. In the DVT timing that they put in to really get that down-low performance in a good way without losing that kind of top-end excitement, feels like magic. They did an awesome job with that, they really did. And the ergonomics are genuinely cruiser. It is feet forward. They are adjustable. You can have them in 3 different positions if you want to have a full stretch or more of that natural seating position. Even with the natural seating position, depending on your height, I'm about 6 feet, you're still a little bit more forward, so the majority of your weight is going to be in the seat. Your feet aren't going to take up too much of that action. The one thing that I will say in regards to the handling, that massive tire in the back at slow speeds is terrible to navigate around town or in stop-and-go traffic. And I was concerned when you started getting up to speeds that you would still have to put a little bit more force into it. But when you get that thing over 20-25 miles an hour, it is amazing how easy it leans over and it wants to turn. Not what I expected. This thing does handle like you would expect a Ducati to handle. Ducati runs the same brakes on this that they usually do. they have no problem stopping the weight and mass and acceleration of this beast. So I don't think that there's anything there that's a concern, other than the fact that they're expensive as hell to maintain. That being said, are there some compromises? Sure. At an aggressive pace, the forward controls limit how much you can, put weight into the pegs and move your body around. You are not going to be able to move yourself in the seat back and forth if you really want to get into it. The longer wheelbase favors stability over that kind of flickability or that cornering. So you can go hard, you can take tight turns, but because it is a longer wheelbase, you're not going to get as tight of a turn, you're not going to get as nimble of corner entrance and exits that you might think that you would. But again, I don't think that's really the point of this bike. It gives you enough of that to say, holy hell, this thing's special, and I think it might be a gateway for people who are curious to try another one of the Ducati lineup. The ride hits hard. It's a cruiser, it's comfortable, and it's sport bred. And it clearly shows. But the question is, where does this fit in the market? You think of the XDiavel S as the Italian answer to the power cruiser. A spiritual rival to machines like the Harley-Davidson V-Rod, may it rest in peace, the Yamaha V-Max, which is also gone, Triumph's Rocket, or even its own Diavel. Except the XDiavel leans deeper into that cruiser DNA with its stance, the belt drive, while keeping Ducati's electronics and handling. It's not the best choice if you want full day touring with wind protection and luggage out of the box. It's not a backroad scalpel like a Street Fighter or a Monster would be either. It's the right pick if you want cruiser posture without giving up cornering competence. If you want high finish quality and a distinctive design that's won major awards, and like I said earlier, is probably the most talked about bike in my collection. Or if you want modern rider aids and performance and a performance envelope most cruisers can't touch. You should consider this bike. If you're a cruiser rider who's been curious about what the Ducati or the European performance enthusiasm is all about. Or even if you're a sport bike rider who's starting to struggle with longer rides, knees and backs are starting to beg for mercy a little bit, but you still want that acceleration, you still want to be loyal to the brand, and you don't necessarily want to walk away from that. The XDiavel and even the Diavel are really good alternatives for that. It's a bike for riders who care as much about the aesthetic execution as they do the mechanical theater. Who want to lope through town at 2,500 RPM and then hustle into a canyon without swapping bikes, or hitting an open country road and being able to just put it down and not have to worry about having enough power. So this XDS doesn't ask you to choose between comfort and character, style or speed. It's a low and long statement piece that when the road bends reminds you it was born in Bologna. I do love it. I really do. Where it fits in the lineup is still a little bit of a mystery, but every time I'm on it, I'm reminded how awesome and unique this thing is. It's a beautiful bike. It's wonderful to ride. I do recommend it, especially if you just don't care too much about how much a bike costs for the year it is, and obviously the renowned Ducati maintenance intervals. But I've enjoyed every minute with it. I really have. I hope you enjoyed this ride. Appreciate you guys as always. Until next time, later.
Dreams we had don't ever fall away. We can't leave them if we stay the same. And I can't do this for another day. So let's get down to business.